Oh, hello. In today's video, we're going to be doing a hobby products review. Not done one of those in a while. We're going to be looking at the DSPIAE, DSPIAE STA Single Blade Nipper 3.0. And more generally, why you need a single blade nipper in your wargaming hobby life. So, a bit narrative. My clippers died. I was using the older model of Games Workshop clippers out of convenience. As often is the way, I'll buy Games Workshop's overpriced hobby stuff because it's right there, and everything else has to come in a van, right? But I did start to notice that they were acquiring a little bit more pressure than I would like to get through the plastic. They are pretty old. They don't even make these clippers anymore. So I went onto my Discord and I said, what clippers should I buy? And I got some recommendations. And all the recommendations I got were for a new kind, well, not new to me, alright, a kind of clipper called a single blade nipper, okay? So the first one that I was advised to look at were the Redgrass Games Precision Nippers. So these are $35.99. Now, most people who are into high-end hobby stuff know Redgrass Games. I've got a Redgrass Games wet palette. I've got some Redgrass Games Thunder. Nice. I've got some Redgrass Games painting handles. I'm on the fence about going in on the Redgrass Games painting light when the Kickstarter opens up. Like, I'm a big fan of Redgrass Games, okay? But out of stock everywhere, or I would have pressed the button there and then. And everyone's heard of the Japanese God Hand nippers, right? And kind of gone off 50 quid for a pair of nippers. Not going to pay that. And then someone recommended these DSPIAE STA nippers. My pair was £21.54 from AliExpress, and that includes postage. At that price, you know, it's hard to pass up giving them a go. And putting these three things here side by side, you'll notice, at least I noticed, they all look the same. They all look the same. They all look like they're the same thing. And I wonder if Redgrass Games are basically taking advantage of the fact that there's a product that's being used over there in Japan, and Western wargamers haven't really heard of it. So they've gone and got one, badged it up as their own stuff, and will sell it on their website, and it'll be really innovative because they're so different from what we're used to using to assemble our miniatures. So a little bit of context. There are three miniatures hobbies, right? There's wargaming, which is dominated by Warhammer. There's kind of scale modelling, where you're really interested in realism, which overlaps a little bit with historical wargaming. And then over in Japan, really popular is Gunpla, which is basically like a Gundam, but they're not necessarily, this is what tripped me up, they're not necessarily all like Gundams from the Gundam TV show. It's become like I think Gundam has become a kind of genericized thing, but it's big giant robots model kits community that are really big in Japan. And what I didn't realise, like, I knew that scale model kit building was really big in Japan and they loved their model robots, and that Games Workshop was constantly trying to infiltrate that market because it was obviously a really popular hobby. One nuance here is, as far as I can tell, and if you understand more about this community, let me know, but those guys don't tend to paint their miniatures. So this sprue here, like, it's one continuous sprue that's cast in 4 different coloured plastics, and one of those plastics is transparent. And people say Games Workshop makes the best model kits in the world. I don't know. I mean, it depends what you mean by best. I mean, yes, but all the parts look pretty straightforward. So swings and roundabouts, right, as to where you put your points on the technology tree. But the Gunpla guys don't tend to paint their models. So that means if you're going to use these coloured pieces and put them together, and that's going to be what colour your miniature is, getting a really clean cut with no white mark is really important in that hobby. And I went down a bit of a rabbit hole of watching a lot of Gunpla videos on YouTube where they review tools and stuff. and different clippers and trying to understand where they're coming from, and it's really, really interesting stuff, right? So I've got my clippers in hand now, and so I had to go on. Please excuse the fact that my camera has greatly intensified the surface of my fingers to a sort of resolution that they weren't designed for. I realise they look kind of unholy at that kind of level of detail, but that's just life, isn't it? This is me trying to show the difference between, admittedly, my old Citadel cutters. I clipped out the arm on the left, and you can see, I mean, I'll use the laser pointer, but I think you can see pretty clearly there's left two pretty rough areas of where you'd have to go back and clean up with a knife. Whereas with the DSPIAE, DSPIAE, I don't know how it's supposed to be pronounced. There's one nub here, which is barely, there's like a little bit of that. And then there was a nub here, which is, you just see like a white outline, basically. There's basically nothing there. So, what I'm saying is, and this is me being a novice in operating these clippers, what I'm saying is, my general thing when I go to clip out miniatures used to be that you'd clip it out, and then on nearly every part, you'd pick up your scalpel, and you'd scrape away the little nubby piece, and with these single blade clippers, most of the time you don't need to use the knife. Maybe like one time, I built the whole, it was this little black library vampire guy that I had on a shelf that I built. I think once I had to use my knife on one snip that I'd done using the new cutters. And that's mad, because that just makes the process of building a model far more enjoyable. Right, because you're not having to scrape. You're not getting your desk absolutely covered in bits of plastic that you've had to scrape off. Okay, yeah, there's still a little bit of knife work to be done, but far, far less. So highly recommended, highly recommended. I know this is not sponsored anywhere. I pay for these out of my own money. All right, I know people are skeptical, and rightly so, of glowing reviews on YouTube. This is just my opinion after having built one miniature. So it's not like a longitudinal test, okay, but highly recommended for the price. And you get a bizarre amount of accessories, right? It's funny to me because the £50 Japanese God Hand clippers come in like a cheap card blister pack, right? And they do come with a little white leather thing that goes on top. But these come with a similar leather thing that goes on top, and you've got like a cleaning cloth, and you've got like a case to put them in, and you've got like a little screwdriver for tensioning the nut, so that if they start over closing, you can screw the nut in a little bit more to keep them, to kind of stop them from hitting, because the blades shouldn't hit each other, they should hit this nut at the perfect position, and you've got a tool for adjusting that. You can see, it's funny to me, they all have, that's this little nub in here. There's one there, there's one there, there's one there, and you can adjust it. But it's funny that only the cheapest ones actually come with the little tool to adjust that. That's kind of funny. Now, a little bit of perspective. Look, I know there are lots of people in the hobby that use something like this, and I've happily built many models like this, and you can still buy these. These are wire cutters from Maplin, which is like a hardware store in the UK, for £4.50. And if you're young, right, and you just want to chuck all your stuff in a bag, and you want to treat it quite roughly, and if you're going to cut through bits of resin and you're going to press down hard and this, that, and the other, I absolutely recommend buying these, and then when they break, buy another pair, and then when they break, buy another pair, and when they break, buy another pair. You can build models quite happily with something like this, okay? You will have to do a little bit of knife work or file work when you use them to get rid of the nubbins. But I'm not really trying to convince people who are cheerfully using like the really cheap options, right? What I'm trying to do is offer advice to people who are contemplating buying a pair of these. So these are the latest iteration of the Games Workshop clippers. And this is where I'm coming from. You know, you love Games Workshop miniatures. You buy clippers from the local Games Workshop because that's your thing, and you assume, hey, these are going to be good. These are going to be the best tool for this job because they're the ones built by the manufacturer of the of the company for clipping out models. Now, I haven't actually tried these latest iteration, I should say, of the Citadel tools. I'm sure they're very nice, okay, but they are just fundamentally, these two things are similar to each other, right? You know, yeah, these have a nicer grip, and I'm sure they are for sharper edges, and I'm sure they have an interesting angle going on, right? And I'm sure they're a little bit thinner. But you can see that these are iterations on the same design. Whereas if I go back here, you can see that all of these are iterations on a different design, right? And what I'm saying is this paradigm here that's coming over from Asia is a better way to snip miniatures, right? So, you know, obviously, it's your money, and you decide what you want to do with it, but I'm really happy with my purchase, and I thought I'd share that with you in case you were in the market for new clippers. Now, some final thoughts. Mrs. TI's also had a go. It's funny, we ordered 2 sets on the same day, and they had to be, because AliExpress is weird, we had to order them in 2 separate orders. So we ordered one in my name and one in her name. Mine arrived today. Hers are landed in the country. I think they're going to come tomorrow, so that every guy's going to be really impressed. We're bringing another parcel to the same house. But Mrs. Tias had to go on mine, and she did really, you know, she really enjoyed them in the same way and no cleanup. She did say that sometimes on a GW sprue, there's not like a really fine pointed tip on these, okay? They do just sort of square off at points, so it can be a bit of a struggle. Like, let me show you. So these are the clippers. I mean, you've seen from the picture, right? But they have they're squared off. They don't have a fine point on the end, right? So sometimes on a very dense Games Workshop sprue, you need to go back to something like this that has more of a nose on it, right? But the thing that you can do then is you can roughly clip them off, leaving a little bit of space, and then you come in with these to clean it where you would with a knife, and it's still quicker with 2 pairs of clippers than it is having to bother with a knife. So, you know, it is worth realising that the kits these are designed for are laid out in a more spacious way, and some of the modern Games Workshop sprues, you know, you will need to get in there with something else just to initially detach it from the sprue. Only when it's really closely packed. Like, I didn't know, I built a Games Workshop model with these before I did my review, and I didn't have that problem at all. So I'm not saying, oh yeah, you can buy them for cleanup, but you need another. No. I'm just saying occasionally you might find you struggle to get in on a really modern kit that's cramming a lot onto a sprue. Okay. I do in general think it's a really interesting thing that we can learn a lot in terms of hobby, in terms of techniques and products from the Gunpla guys and from also the scale model guys, right? And it's funny because we kind of don't really talk to each other, and we weirdly people sneer at each other, don't they, in those 3 communities a little bit. And we shouldn't do that, because fundamentally we're all getting joy from a very similar activity, and rather than existing in our bubbles, I think it would be great to share more. Do you have any hobby tools that you swear by, especially ones that aren't typical in the sort of Western Warhammer dominated gaming space? Please do, you know, let me know in the comments. I'm always interested in hearing people's recommendations for things. You know, hobby products is the number one place where I think going random third party and getting random different things, and you can really improve your experience when you are building or painting a miniature. Right? Hope you found that video useful. I'm sorry that this is a day late. I was going to make a different video, right, which my members know about, and then it was frustrating me too much, and then it didn't get made. So These arrived in the post today, so I got off my backside to do a video on these instead. Hope you enjoyed it. Like, subscribe, comment, consider channel membership, all those things. And cheery bye.